Hello everybody and welcome back to the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel. I hope you all are having a fantastic week up until this point. I hope you all are excited for what's about to happen this coming weekend. We've got week 1 of college football. I know we had a week already of college football, I guess, but that's week 0. That's week 0. And us here in the state of Iowa, though we watched all the games that took place, I know ESPN graced us with the presence of UMass versus New Mexico State. I was so thrilled to watch that game while I was doing a fantasy football draft. It was friggin' awesome. Love seeing action like that. We saw Navy beat the absolute pig schnat out of Notre Dame, or the other way around. We saw Notre Dame beat the absolute piss out of Navy over in Ireland. We saw Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams' things, 4 touchdowns in the game against San Jose State, one beautiful back foot throw. And speaking of Caleb Williams, you can go check out our preseason quarterback rankings in the description down below, or you can go to the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel in general and just go find the video there for yourself. And while you're doing that, might as well make sure you subscribe as well and check out the links in the description below where you can check out links to the podcast, the website, and all different social media accounts. I would greatly appreciate that. Now, what we are doing here today is going through the state of Iowa. We got Iowa, we got Iowa State, we got UNI all in action this weekend with Iowa State and UNI playing each other on Saturday, but it's finally back. It's finally back. College football here in the state of Iowa is back in action, and I, for one, can't be more excited. And I know a lot of people out there are really excited about their teams finally kicking off. Again, we watched some college football last week, but it hits different when it's your team suiting up against someone else, and you get to watch them either win or lose. Regardless, you're going to get your ass back in the seat and watch them next week. Now, this year is going to be a very interesting year, and already has been a very interesting year for the football programs here in the state of Iowa, namely Iowa and Iowa State, with all the gambling probes that have been going around. A lot of key players for both teams are being suspended or have been, not kicked off the team, but are taking time away from the team. It's a very odd situation where the only state that is getting pressed about all of this is the great state of Iowa. And you've got players like Noah Shannon for Iowa, who just got suspended the entire season. You've got Jareel Brock and Hunter Deckers for Iowa State. We got some key players missing time this season, and it's going to be interesting to see how we, as a state, as these teams, adjust to these massive losses. So we'll get to all that and more, but we're going to split this up into 3 videos here. So we got Iowa, Iowa State, and UNI. Again, Iowa State and UNI play each other week 1. But we're going to start off here with the team that kicks off first on Saturday, and that is the University of Iowa. They're taking on Utah State in week 1 at 11 o'clock, which is prime time Big Ten action. You know how normal primetime games are at 7 o'clock or at 6:30 or sometime in the evening. When you hear the word primetime, you think of, some of you might think of Deion Sanders, others might think of nationally televised game for the whole world to see. But primetime Big Ten games are 11 o'clock on a Saturday. That is prime time action. That is the best game of the week, is at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, and that's why Iowa and Utah State are kicking off there. But before we get into the game, we're going to go game by game and say what we think, give Iowa's record prediction at the end of the video as well. But for Iowa to start the season off, there's a lot of excitement building because of who came in for the quarterback position. Now, it's Cade McNamara, obviously transferred in from Michigan, got Michigan, or was part of a team that saw Michigan go to the Big Ten championship, a game which they we brought this up earlier,
just kicked the pig snot out of Iowa.
Destroyed them. No one was really surprised. If you were surprised watching that game, I can't help you. I think everybody and their mom knew what Michigan was going to do to Iowa that game. You look at the offensive line for Iowa. You look at what kind of schemes I was running on offense in that game. And then you look at who Michigan had, namely on the defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson, 2nd overall pick in the next year's draft. David Ojabo, who would have been a lot higher draft pick had he not snapped his Achilles in preseason training. Daxton Hill in the secondary. This was a complete stacked Michigan defense. Absolutely stacked, and they took full advantage of it. On the opposite side of the ball, you had Blake Corum there. You had Hassan Haskins. You had Cade McNamara. You had Eric All, 2 players that are both going to the University of Iowa this year. And again, there's a lot of excitement for Cade McNamara coming in, and I, for one, am excited as well, just because it's something different. Now, is Cade McNamara an all-American, amazing-ass quarterback? No, not necessarily. He's a good quarterback. When you have a running game and offensive line like Michigan had, all you need to do is play smart. Not do anything that will be detrimental to the team, and that's what Iowa was kind of lacking last year, and Cade McNamara is the kind of guy that Brian and Kirk are wanting at the quarterback position. He's not going to do anything fancy. He's not going to do anything fancy, but he's accurate, he's smart with the ball, won't force the ball in any circumstances, and he won't put Iowa in any bad situations anyways. Like, he's kind of like an Alex Smith in that sort of way. Really good leader as well. From all things gathered, it's kind of been well documented Cade McNamara is a fairly good leader, and there were some, scares, I guess you could say, about Cade McNamara's availability for week 1, but he was listed as QB1 on the depth chart Iowa just released today, so fears aside, but it is exciting. It is exciting. He could go out there and be like the next Joe Burrow and just absolutely light it up at the new team he was on, or, he could just be a nice, solid, game-managing quarterback for Iowa who will eat on the play-action pass, which he did at Michigan. You look at Iowa's running game this year, with Caleb Johnson expecting to take that leap this year, had a really nice year last year, and LaShawn Williams, who was kind of the main guy early portions of the season last year before Caleb Williams started, or I combined them. Before Caleb Johnson kind of started taking over as that RB1 position. And at the receiving core, you got Nico Reganey still there. You got Deontay Vines in there as well. And you got Caleb Brown in from Ohio State, which is a very nice get for Iowa. But the main focus out wide for Iowa is going to be the tight end position. I mean, this is tight end U here. Iowa has Luke Lachey and Eric All, the guy we brought up earlier from Michigan. Cade McNamara brought him over once he transferred from Iowa. Bring some more excitement to the tight end position at Iowa. Like, we get a nice little 2 tight end set here, which is what Iowa wants to run, obviously. Obviously, it's tight end U. Iowa usually seems to have a very good tight end tandem there. The only question marks on this offense, really, not the only one, but the offensive line's a big one. Offensive line under the past few years for Iowa has not really been what it's used to be, but the offensive line will be one of the question marks going into the season. For all the issues Spencer Petras had while he was the quarterback at the University of Iowa, the starting quarterback at the University of Iowa, one thing that we can defend Petras on is that the O-line, again, just wasn't up to the University of Iowa standard. Was he bad? Yeah, but I respect Spencer Petras for going to the media after every single game, answering all the questions, getting booed by his fans. I respect him. For that, but not a very good quarterback. So I, again, am excited to see what Cade McNamara can bring to this offense. And then, speaking of, again, we're talking about the offense here, Brian Ferentz. I mean, this is a team that averaged 17 points a game last year. Granted, they did allow just 13 points a game, but 17 points per game is not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. So we're hoping to see a new version of this offense this year. I don't know what kind of version we're going to see. And, I've been looking at this as a fan's perspective for a while, where it's like, at each passing year, it's like, I can't be worse. It can't be worse. It can't be worse. And then it's like, it is. It is worse than what it was last year. But with Cade McNamara in, again, a guy that won't lose you any games, won't put you in tough positions. If the running game is what we expect it to be, then this offense should be vastly improved from what we saw last year. Now, the defensive side of things, that's where Iowa has all the stability. You look at the defensive line. I know we brought up Noah Shannon earlier. He will not be on the team this year, suspended for the whole year. But big dude Y.A. Blackson can come in and replace him to go long off a defensive line that's already freaking stacked. You got Joe Evans there. You got Deontay Craig there. You got Logan Lee. Same namesake, so you know he's got to be good at football. Linebacking court. You lost a lot of good linebackers there. Justin Jacobs is gone. Jack Campbell, first-round pick's gone. Seth Benson's gone. But you brought in Nick Jackson from Virginia. People are expecting Nick Jackson to be one of the leaders, if not the leader, for Iowa in tackles this year. And then you also got Jay Higgins in there, who's expected to be another key contributor on the defensive side of the ball for Iowa in the linebacking spots and the secondary. This is Iowa's bread and butter, especially recently. You look at what Phil Parker's turned in, or not even recently, just throughout Phil Parker's tenure at Iowa, they just have a massive pool of elite secondary players, and this year it's no different. Cooper DeJean is one of the best defensive backs in the country, expected to be another first-round pick in the secondary for Iowa this year. But you also got Schulte back there, you got Xavier Nwankpa back there, you got Jamari Harris, who's going to be coming back this year from an undisclosed injury that he had last year. But all in all, there's a lot of excitement building for the University of Iowa football team this year, because again, the offense has got new faces in it. Every time you get a new quarterback, when your last quarterback wasn't very good, everybody's expectations go from here to there. It's just naturally what happens. A new quarterback brings a whole level of excitement to a franchise, to a university, to whatever. Like, you look at the NFL draft, you have the number 1 pick. Your team is ass. Look at the Arizona Cardinals. They just cut Colt McCoy, so everybody's expecting them to tank, which is kind of the expectations going into the season for Caleb Williams. And for all the problems the Arizona Cardinals have, you get Caleb Williams, that fan base excitement goes up 1,000%. And that's the situation Iowa's got. Now, Cade McNamara is not Caleb Williams. I do not want to put that out there. He's not Caleb Williams. But, watch him win the Heisman. Watch him take Caleb Williams' Heisman Trophy run this year. Who knows? Weirder things have happened. Weirder things have happened than that. But it's a new, I don't want to say new era, because it's really not. Iowa will run the similar-ish offense that they've run for the past 22 years, 25 years, and you know what? It's going to get Iowa far. Iowa's a consistent unit, and their schedule is very maneuverable this year. Very maneuverable. But it's one of the easiest schedules in college football this season. And it starts off again with Utah State. They should win this game fairly easily. Now, Terrell Vaughn at wide receiver, really speedy wide receiver for them, will cause problems. He'll be a pain in the ass. He's a returner for them as well. He'll be their big issue for Iowa. He'll be the big issue for Iowa going into this game. But Iowa, I'm not expecting another, whatever the hell you want to call it, 7-3 game against South Dakota State last year, because South Dakota State is better than Utah State. So Iowa should have really no issues in this game. I expect them to breeze by this game. As for week 2, rivalry game against Iowa State. A lot of question marks going into the season for Iowa State. Like right now, we don't even really know who their quarterback is. They just released their depth chart today as well, and Rocco Becht and freshman J.J. Cole are listed as co-starters, I guess you could say, because they got both names as QB1, and they got a little or next to it. We'll see which one they go with out there against UNI in week 1, but maybe that changes going to the Iowa game. Maybe that changes. We might see both of them play against UNI. We might see one of them play, and, who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but Iowa should win this game. After all the Iowa State fans I've talked to this year, and I got a lot of friends that are Iowa State fans, there's not any expectations going into this game, from what I can tell. I could be reading the room wrong. I have talked to a lot of Iowa State fans. There's not a lot of, feeling confident going into this game. Iowa lost to Iowa State last year in a 10-7 game, snooze-filled game. And Iowa State had a 99-yard drive in that game. It brought back memories of that Michigan State Big Ten championship game where it was like a drive where you just can't stop it. They're going to score. It's just a matter of when they score. And it was a nice 12-minute long drive. Insanely long drive. Michigan State had the 9-minute drive in the Big Ten championship game. Iowa State had the 12-minute drive, but though this game's at Jack Trice this year, Iowa, again, really should have no problems here. I expect Iowa to go 2-0 to start the year. And I expect that to continue to 3-0 because they play Western Michigan week 3. And I've seen Iowa lose to Western Michigan. I've seen Iowa lose to other MAC schools. Like, they lost to Western Michigan on senior day. Not the good one under P.J. Fleck, a 5-7 Western Michigan team when Jay Christensen was there. I watched them lose to Northern Illinois with Jordan Lynch. I watched them lose to Central Michigan. Like, they've lost to MAC teams. It's not out of the question here. But Iowa should breeze through this game again. They beat them fairly easily a few years ago. Cavante Martin-Manley had a few punt return touchdowns. They should have a fairly easy time against Western Michigan in this game. So we're going to go. It might go on a limb. We're going to go on a limb. We're going to go 3-0. We're going to go 3-0 for Iowa here. Now this next game's where we get a little interesting here. We got Penn State on the road. Has this game 6:30? I was going to see if this game had a time yet. I guess I hadn't really seen it. 6:30 on CBS. So we get to hear the old SEC tune for Iowa Penn State. That's an exciting time. Both these teams will be ranked because I could be wrong, but I don't see Iowa going into this Penn State game with a loss. Like, these are three. Again, this might sound mean to Iowa State, but this should be a relatively easy 3-0 start to the season. This Penn State game's tough, though. Penn State's got a lot of hype building into the season with Drew Allar at quarterback being one of the main reasons why. Then they got Nick Singleton at running back, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. Olu Fashanu at left tackle, one of the best tackles, if not the best tackle, and not just college football, the NFL draft as well coming to this season. And then they brought in Dante Cephas from Kent State, who's a 1,200-yard receiver 2 years ago at Kent State. Had about just under 800 yards last season there. But Penn State makes most of their noise, especially under James Franklin on the defensive side of the ball. You look at some of the players they've had recently there, like Micah Parsons, Jason Owe. Like, they always have very good players on the defensive side. And this year's no different, especially in the edge rusher department. And the linebacker, this linebacker you. It's linebacker you. And you got Chop Robinson on the defensive line. Like, which nickname's cooler? Is Chop Robinson cooler or Sauce Gardner cooler? I don't know. I like both of them. But Chop Robinson is a very, very good defensive and very good edge rusher for Penn State. And then you also got Adissa Isaac there on the opposite side of him. So that's an elite edge rushing tandem right there. And then the linebacker spots, you got Abdul Carter back there and Curtis Jacobs. Like, that's another elite linebacking duo. Not to mention they got probably the best cornerback in college football in Kalen King. Now, you can have arguments about Cooper DeJean, Kalen King, Kool-Aid McKinstry, there's others that I'm forgetting about right now, but Those are the main guys you'll see up there. But Kalen King's a freaking problem. He's a freaking problem. So with Kalen King being there, Johnny Dixon on the opposite side is going to get a lot of action, but he's a good corner in his own right too. So this is a very tough game going to Happy Valley. I've seen Iowa win this game when they had no chance in hell in winning this game. I've seen Iowa get blown out of this game and then beat a number 2 team in the nation the very next week. So anything can happen here, but I do think Iowa picks up a loss here. I think there's too much stuff going on for Penn State this year. With the offensive line question marks that we've had for the past couple years, Robinson and Isaac should have a very good game. I'm not saying it'll be like a blowout or anything. I don't think that's the case. I don't know if it'll be a necessarily very high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a very relatively low-scoring game with Iowa wanting to establish the run, Penn State with Nick Singleton wanting to establish the run as well. But it depends on what they get from Drew Allar. If Drew Allar is as good as everybody thinks he is, then they could cause some serious problems this year and definitely make an appearance in the Big Ten championship game. But we are going to say Iowa loses this game. And the next game for Iowa, we've got Michigan State. They did lose Peyton Thorne and Keon Coleman. We brought up in the quarterback preview, which again, you can check out in the description below. Losing those two is pretty big because there's a lot of question marks going into the season about the quarterback position. Noah Kim and Caton Hauser are there at quarterback spot, but rather inexperienced. And under Mel Tucker, though they had a lot of success with Kenneth Walker there, the defense has been a little bit of a problem area for them. So if that doesn't improve, this could be another relative, I don't want to say easy win because Michigan State's going to be a tough team regardless. And bringing in Nathan Carter and Jared Mangum this offseason from the transfer portal, Michigan State, again, we brought up Kenneth Walker, is going to want to establish the run in some capacity, especially with the inexperience at quarterback, and losing a guy like Keon Coleman, they're going to want to run the ball. So this, again, could be a relatively low-scoring game. Depends on what offense shows up for Iowa if they want to take advantage of Michigan State's defense. But I do think Iowa will go through and get another win here, get back on the winning train back at home, and start off with 4-1. And then the next game, you got kind of, in recent, I know they won last year, but in recent years, Iowa's main kryptonite in the schedule has been against Purdue. Now, this is going to be a little bit different Purdue team, because remember, the Braun brothers went back down to Louisville. So you bring in Walters from Illinois, who's the defensive coordinator there. We'll see how he adjusts things there, but bringing in Hudson Card, after losing Aiden O'Connell, Hudson Card, very solid quarterback at Texas. Very solid quarterback. Had a pretty decent game against Alabama when Quinn Ewers went down injured last year. I think he's a good dude, good quarterback. But losing Charlie Jones, losing Payne Durham at tight end is massive. Again, with Iowa kind of having issues against Purdue in the past, that might come up to bite them. But this being at home and the way Iowa beat them last year, 24-3, I do think Iowa will have enough to take to beat Purdue this year again. Despite Hudson Card being there. Again, I like Hudson Card. And they got some players coming in there as well, but I do think Iowa will go 5-1 through these first 6 games of the year. And then moving on to Game 7, we go to Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin, take on the Wisconsin Badgers with a kind of a new look Wisconsin Badgers team with Phil Longo coming in from North Carolina, who's Drake May's offensive coordinator. This could be a whole different style of offense. And Wisconsin's not really been known for having, great quarterbacks apart from Russell Wilson. And he was only there for a year, but they went to the Rose Bowl, so I guess you can't really say anything there. They're more known for the running backs, and that's Braylon Allen. We got like a long line of running backs for Wisconsin, like Melvin Gordon, Corey Clement, James White, Monte Ball, PJ Hill. Like there's Jonathan Taylor, why did I forget about Jonathan Taylor? With all the stuff going around with him recently. They're running back you. And Braylon Allen is going to be one of the main focal points of this offense, obviously. But we'll see how they balance that with, again, Longo coming in and bringing in Tanner Mordecai, who's been a part of a spread all-action offense at SMU, played at Oklahoma for a little bit. Remember, he came in for Spencer Rattler in that game against Texas a couple years ago. We brought that up again in the quarterback preview video. So again, go check that go check that out down below. But Wisconsin's a tough game, especially going to Camp Randall. It'll be interesting to see how Iowa handles this offense. It'll be interesting to see how Wisconsin transitions to this offense. With Luke Fickell coming in, it's going to be a different style of Wisconsin football that we haven't really seen there over the past however many years. Them throwing the ball over the field. Like you got DK out wide, who was the leading receiver last year for Wisconsin. Didn't have a ton of yards last year, but still, this is a run-first team normally, so he's coming back, which is a very big get for them. Then you got the likes of CJ Williams coming in. You got Will Pauling coming in from Cincinnati and Bryson Green from Oklahoma State. So you've got some depth at the wide receiver position this year. So again, it'll be interesting to see how Wisconsin adjusts to this new style of offense and how Tanner Mordecai does, because Tanner Mordecai is a very good quarterback. Very good quarterback. So having him with Braylon Allen in the backfield, It could be very fun to watch for a neutral or if you're a Wisconsin fan this coming season. And not to mention, we were talking about the offensive side of the ball, but they're also very good at the defense, namely the linebacking core. Like, Nick Herbig's gone. Nick Herbig went up to the NFL this year, but he got back there at the linebacker position, and he got Njung Meta back there. Like, this is going to be a very solid, compact team. These are two favorites for the West. I think we can all agree on that these are the two favorites going into the season for the western part of the Big Ten. But I am going to say Wisconsin wins this. I think that Braylon Allen there, mixing that with this new style of offense Wisconsin's going for. And again, Wisconsin may not be able to adjust properly to this. It may not be able to work for them. So who knows? But if this works the way that I'm seeing it work, or that I'm envisioning in my head, I do think Wisconsin comes out on top. I think it's a close game because Iowa's got one of the best defenses in college football. Again, they lost some key people, but that secondary is going to be tough. But can Iowa withstand Braylon Allen in the backfield mixed with this new power pass game, or mixed with this new high-octane offense in the passing game? Time will tell. But I am going to say Wisconsin comes out with a W in this game. And the next game of the season, we got Minnesota. We got PJ Fleck coming back to Kinnick Stadium. Remember, Iowa won this game last year, but Minnesota's losing some key players. Like Tanner Morgan's gone. Muhammad Ibrahim's gone. Trey Potts transferred to Penn State this offseason as well. Like, you lost some key pieces, key leaders on the team. Like, Tanner Morgan was there for 100 years. I'm not 100% sure by this, but Tanner Morgan, I think, had hair when he first got to Minnesota. There could be a very good chance he didn't. A very good chance he did. I think he was at Western Michigan before. Very good chance he didn't have hair. But, that's not the point here. But Ethan Kaliak-Manis at quarterback, he showed signs last year of being a solid quarterback. Not necessarily the most consistent guy out there. Like, you got a guy that you at least knows the system there. But losing Muhammad Ibrahim, losing Trey Potts, you did manage to bring in Sean Tyler from Western Michigan, who was a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher. Like, PJ Fleck will want to have that running game. Like, when Muhammad Ibrahim went down, had Trey Potts went down, they had another guy. Like, they have a conveyor belt of running backs there that are serviceable, and getting Sean Tyler, and again, back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, is big for the style of game PJ Fleck's going to want to play up there. But the main player on this team comes on the defensive side of the ball. You got Tyler Nubin back there, who had 4 interceptions last year, one of the top safeties in all of college football, could possibly be a first-round draft pick. Who knows? He'll cause problems for the defensive side of things for Iowa, but I do think Iowa will be able to get over top Minnesota in this game. Being at home is big, and yeah, I think they could add a lot of pressure to Kaliak-Manis, and Iowa comes away with the dub. And in these next two games, I'm not really this could come back to completely bite me in the ass, but we're gonna skip over these two games. We got Northwestern at Wrigley and Rutgers. Iowa should realistically, again, this could come back to bite me in the ass. I'm well aware of that. I'm open to it. I'm not afraid of this, but Iowa should really have no problems. Like, Rutgers got Max Melton at corner. I like Max Melton. They got a solid, for Rutgers standards, they got a solid people on defense. Offense is a mess, and Northwestern is just a mess in general. So Iowa should go into these two games, come out relatively unscathed, and come out 2-0 from these games. And then we go into the second last game of the year against Illinois back at home. The rematch of the absolute 6-9 barn burner we saw last year in Champaign, Illinois. Like, this is a lot of excitement going into this game. The Fighting Brett Bielemas are going to Kinnick Stadium. You got Luke Altmaier transferring in from Ole Miss. You got Sikowski, who was a national superstar after they beat Northwestern a couple years ago, or Northwestern after they beat Nebraska week 1 a couple years ago. And they got Tommy DeVito's out as well. But Luke Altmaier is a very solid quarterback. Transferring from Ole Miss, solid option at quarterback for Illinois. But there are a lot of key players missing this past season, like very key players. You got Sidney and Chase Brown both gone. You got Tre'Tavious Martin gone, who got a pick against the Baltimore Ravens, which partially ended the Ravens' 24-game preseason win streak. They lost to the Washington Commanders. Tre'Tavious Martin making his presence known for them. But what they're missing there, they make up for on the defensive line. Jerzon Newton is one of the best defensive linemen in all of college football. May very well be one of the first defensive linemen taken in next year's draft. And you got Keith Randolph out there as well, like 6'5", 305 pounds. Those two, for Illinois in the defensive line, are going to cause a lot of issues for the Iowa offensive line. But being at Kinnick, I'm going to go with Iowa here. We're going to go 9-2 in the last game of the year. And I don't think this game will be 6-9 like we saw last year. I refuse to believe this game could be 6-9. Like, I refuse to believe week 1 to be 7-3. I refuse to believe Iowa State could be 10-7. I refuse to believe Illinois is going to be 6-9. And that could all come back to bite me in the ass. And again, I'm open to it. But that last week of the season at Nebraska, Matt Rule's coming back from the NFL. Very good college coach. I mean, you saw what he did at Temple. You saw what he did to turn around Baylor. Like, he's a very good coach. It just didn't work out for him in the NFL. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes college coaches aren't cut out for the NFL, and he comes back to college and goes to a big-time university that's kind of stuck in the mud for the past few years. I mean, they did beat Iowa last year. I do give them credit for that because I welcome that because that kept Iowa out of the Big Ten Championship, partially kept Iowa out of the Big Ten Championship game. Like, I didn't need to see that team there. I was upset with the way the game, like, went on, but I wasn't, like, weirdly, that's, like, the only time I've been more okay with Iowa losing that game. And that's weird to say. That's very weird to say, but I do think Iowa bounced back this year. I like Jeff Sims coming in from Georgia Tech. Casey Thompson just transferred this offseason, but Jeff Sims coming in, upgrade at quarterback, I would say. And he could cause some serious problems for Iowa. He's very mobile. He's a big dude. He could cause some problems here. But I do think Iowa getting back on winning track. Like the last time Nebraska beat Iowa before last year, Tommy Armstrong was the quarterback. It might as well have been when B.J. Armstrong was playing basketball. But Tommy Armstrong was the quarterback back in 2014. It's been a long-ass time since Nebraska beat Iowa, and they finally did it. Not only that, they kept Iowa, again, partially out of the Big Ten Championship game. Jeff Sims in at quarterback, I think it's big. I think Matt Rule coming in is big, but I do think Iowa is going to get over top of Nebraska and finish the regular season 10-2. I do expect them to be in the Big Ten Championship next year. This year. I know I said they lost to Wisconsin, but I do think Wisconsin, I don't know. I am expecting. That's the weird thing. I had Iowa losing to Wisconsin, losing to Wisconsin, but they beat Purdue, and Purdue was in the Big Ten Championship game. I think Wisconsin will slip up. I do think there's going to be a game where Wisconsin slips up and opens the door for Iowa going to the championship game. So I got Iowa going there, 10-2, upgrade on last season. Hopefully the offense can score more than 17 points a game. That would be pretty cool. Defense will be solid again, as per usual. And yeah, I'm just excited. I am excited for college football to be back. I am excited for Iowa football. And we will have Iowa State and UNI previews coming up within the next few days. So I hope you stay tuned for that. Make sure, again, you subscribe. I hope you liked the video, so make sure, give it a thumbs up. If you did, check out all the links in the description below. I've been Logan Blackman. I'll see you guys later. Peace.